Welcome to Beardychiel's Knitting Banter, episode 2. Here's Johnny. What can I say? I put up my very first podcast, episode 1, and to a certain extent it was a suck it and see, try how it goes, and what I can say is thank you to all those who watched, and thank you to those who gave feedback. And episode 2 is in production, as you can obviously see. Here we are, Beardychiel's Knitting Banter, talking about knitting, crochet, crafting, and life in general. You can find me, John Glenn, here on YouTube as Beardychiel. You'll find me on Ravelry as Beardychiel. You'll find me on Instagram as Beardychiel. And if you're looking for me in email, it's beardychiel@gmail.com. A special welcome to those of you, as I say, who were with us for episode 1, and if you're joining us for the first time in episode 2, thanks for joining my journey, and I hope you enjoy your visit. Now, I was asked by one friend who's also a knitter, could she join my Ravelry group? Well, I didn't have a Ravelry group, so I said no. But I did have a nice long chat to her, and I decided maybe it wasn't a bad thing. So there is a Beardychiel Knitting Banter Ravelry group. There are 3 or 4 members already, and if you would like to join us there are a couple of questions up. One, a sort of welcome and introduce yourself question, and a one is what's this week's challenge. It's anything that is driving you mad that's knitting or crochet based. Ask your questions and see if anyone there can help solve your problem. What's in this episode, I thought? Oh, long and hard. There are 1 or 2 things which appear in lots of different podcasts or video logs, whatever you want to call them. I got a row from my son. He said, Dad, you're out of style and you're out of fashion. Podcasts were last year. This year they're calling them vlogs, vlogs, video logs. And I said, oh right, okay son, thanks, I'll just do what I always do and plod on regardless. But what to put in? Well, I thought something about personal history. I thought I'd put in something about my local area. Where do I live? Why do I live here? What's good about living here? What's my news? What's been happening over the last few days? As always, what's on the needles? What are the works in progress? What am I trying to get finished? I decided that something around completed objects or finished objects would be sensible, because most of the people who podcast have something like that. And when I was thinking of completed objects, I suddenly realised that a co-op is somewhere that we go shopping. So I like to go to the co-op, so I'll have co-ops, completed objects. That should take us through most of what we want for the first half of today. There are some votes of thanks to people who have helped to make this easier to put together. There's some information on stash, what I've got put away. A little something about needles and pins, because we have lots and lots of work based around what people are knitting, what yarn they're using, but there's not always a lot about the needles and pins and hooks that are being used to help produce that work. So I have a collection. I thought, let's have a look at the collection. So that's what we're looking forward to in this particular episode. Without any further ado, adieu means goodbye, so it's not goodbye yet. Let's make a start. Personal history. I started knitting at the age of 10, as I said last time, and I kept knitting through my teenage years. Knitting as a teen had its difficulties. Being a male who was a knitter in their teens in the 1970s was not generally accepted as normal, in inverted commas. And people assumed that if you had an interest like that, there was obviously a predisposition to you potentially being gay. I'm afraid that didn't really mean much to me at the time. I just knitted and didn't think anything else about it. When I went to university in the late 70s, and I did see some other folk who were having a terrible time because they were starting to come out for the first time, I suddenly realised that it should have been a major problem, and possibly I should have understood more about it at the time. But it wasn't a general topic for discussion in the 70s. Consequently, what does it mean to me? It means that I think I've learned to be a slightly more compassionate and understanding and accepting person. I don't really judge people based on anything other than their tendency towards bigotry, because the only thing I can't stand is a bigot of any description. So, kept going. I knitted for my family, I knitted for friends occasionally, and at one point in the early 1980s I found myself unemployed. And I was looking for work, and I found myself walking into a yarn store in Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow, where I'm originally from, and they had a sign up which said hand knitters required, and I thought, well, how difficult can it be? So I approached the lady at the counter and I asked, and she sort of looked me up and down as if to say, yeah, that'll be right. And I said, well, give me a set of pins and some yarn and I'll show you what I can do. She duly gave me a set of pins and some scrap yarn, and one of the things my grandmother had taught me to knit very early on was a simple blanket square, which was bottom triangle and a top triangle in one. The bottom triangle was a leaf pattern with 8 little lace holes in it, on a reverse stocking stitch background, so it was a raised stocking stitch leaf, and the top half was a simple tree design. So as I got halfway through it, she said, yeah, I don't need to see any more. She'd seen me increasing, she'd seen me doing a little bit of lace, she'd seen me changing between stocking stitch and reverse stocking stitch, and she said, yeah, okay, yes, you can knit. And that started me off on a series of interesting times, knitting primarily Icelandic sweaters because they were very fashionable in the early 80s, and it improved my stranded work no end because you're having to work to a deadline. It was interesting to see the patterns that people wanted you to knit, and people would go into a store who didn't knit at all and say, I want that pattern and I want that yarn and that yarn for colour, and can I have it by such and such a date? You get a phone call saying, pop in, we've got a jumper for you, and you went, picked up your materials and off you went to work. It was, as I say, interesting to see what some people chose. The colours sometimes were very complimentary, absolutely gorgeous and worked really, really well. Sometimes they were absolutely awful, and in those days, if you were not aware of wool, there were very few alternate fabrics or alternate fibres around, so it meant that you were in acrylics or nylon, and they were generally super bright acid type colours, sometimes not very complementary to one another, generally like a bit wiry when you were knitting with them, but there was a lot of them sold, so people wanted them, you knitted them. Has that made my knitting change? It did at the time. My speed went up because I was desperately wanting to earn cash, so I was quite happy to knit for long periods of time. Since then, I've knitted for family, I've knitted for friends, most of my knitting for family, and very occasionally I knit for the stage. I knit for costume department in the local theatre if required. I knit for the props department, and the most recent stage knitting I've done has been for the props department. Earlier this year I was involved in a production of a play called Sex Sells by Anna Longaretti, and if you look up the history of the play you'll find the introduction to it on YouTube. It's an interesting little piece looking at motherhood, but through the unusual background of being set in a place where they sell sex toys. And it's poignantly sad combined with hilariously funny. And we needed some knitted props. One member of the cast was supposed to be knitting while they were on stage, so her knitting as a prop for use on stage had to be prepared. And there was one scene in particular where there was great discussion over the on-stage willy warmers, and we decided that they would be knitted. Consequently, I came home and very quickly improvised a pattern. Some of the questions that were asked about it, I hate to tell you, but photographs will appear quite shortly. One was just generally for prototyping and was used as a joke, and the second one ended up appearing on stage every night because it was topical and it got a laugh. So that's me. Other than that, lots of things for grandchildren, not great grandchildren, but grand nieces and nephews, and that's good fun. The occasional piece for a member of the family, and that's the knitting history to date. So see how you settle on with that. I hope it's been interesting. Let's move on to my local area. I said last time that I live in Thurso in Caithness in the far north of Scotland. From the main street at the end of my road we look onto the Pentland Firth and across to the Orkney Islands. It's a stunningly beautiful place to live. As you drive around town or out of town, the scenery across the Pentland Firth is absolutely amazing. On a clear day you see the south end of Orkney, you can see the old man of Hoy sticking up at one side, and it's just really, really nice. As you travel around the county has two major towns, Thurso and Wick. Most of the local place names are Norse in origin. Thurso is Thor's River. And there are a lot of local areas whose place names end S-T-E-R. Scrabster, Albster, Ster being Norse for village. So there's a massive tie to Nordic history in the area. We have some rather amazing cairns, particularly the cairns at Campster. We have brochs, we have a lot of archaeological ruins in the area. We have some stunningly beautiful not wetlands, but vast peat bogs, which run from Caithness into Sutherland, known as the Flow Country. And in this area we have a very, very large RSPB reserve at Forsenard. And we are lucky that we have such a vast range of wildlife in the area. What's it like? Facilities? We're an average town. We have the average supermarkets, we have a cinema, we have a theatre, we have very nice little shops. The two towns, Wick and Thurso, both have a distillery in them. Old Pulteney Distillery in Wick is well over 100 years old, has a stunning array of whiskies to its name, including one or two World Championship winning whiskies. One of their whiskies last year was named Best in the World. Thurso has a distillery which opened just about 3.5 years ago called Wolfburn, and this year for the very first time they had whiskey they had spirit which was 3 years old and had been stored in oak and could officially be called whiskey for the first time. So I had to force myself to buy some and try it, and it has great potential. Not unpleasant at the moment, not super pleasant at the moment, but it will get there. We also have a gin distillery and vodka distillery called Dunnet Bay Distillers, which is about 7 or 8 miles out of town, and there's a lovely little distillery there who produce an award-winning gin which appears in stone bottles, or stone glazed bottles, called Rock Rose Gin. If you get a chance to see it anywhere and taste it, I recommend it. A lovely, lovely summer drink. And we have some famous people from the area. We have the world famous designer Anne McKevitt, who's from the local village of Halkirk, and now works internationally. We have produced professional actors. We have some rather unusual claims to fame. The electric clock was invented here in Caithness. The fax machine was invented here in Caithness. The Boys Brigade founder was born here in Caithness. And one or two other things. And as we explore over the next little while, I'll try and throw something into every episode about the area. We'll see what information we can show you just to make you feel as if you know the place a little better. So, the last week has been fairly quiet. I haven't been doing much of anything other than sitting and knitting. Yes, I'm on holiday from school. I've also had a little bout of ill health, which involved being in hospital for a couple of days and some additional medication, and an order from the doctor to sit still and do absolutely nothing, so I'm doing my best to oblige. Making a nice recovery from that, so hopefully that will continue to go well. 1 or 2 follow-up visits to the hospital, one last week for tests and another one next week for tests, so let's suck it and see. So, where do we go next? Well, earlier today I set up this video ready to record it, and I was interrupted. A co-presenter offered themselves to me and said, really, he should be helping to make the podcast. And of course, being myself, I smiled and I said, yes. So I'll hand you over now to my co-host, Ian.
Okay. Hello everybody. I am John Glenn's grandson. And if you didn't know, I have been knitting this. And I've had sleepovers, I've had a lot of stuff, and well, you've now seen Jones Glenn's grandson. Peace out.
I'm back. Well, I hope you enjoyed my visit from my little co-host. Ian's my grandson. He is 6, and just about a week ago he was sitting watching me. He was here for a sleepover and said, "Granda, can I knit please?" So I dug out some old family pins. They were my grandmother's. Gave him a small ball of scrap yarn, cast on 15 stitches for him, knitted the first row, and taught him my granny's method of teaching knitting, which was to constantly repeat the mantra in, over, through and off. In, over, through and off. In, over, through and off. And I have to say, he managed the row before bedtime that night and has had his knitting in his hands once or twice since. Hasn't made an awful lot further progress, but he will get there slowly and steadily. Works in progress. What's on the needles at the moment, what has been moving forward, and what has been stagnating? Well, let's start with what's been moving forward. My green bowl holds my ball of wool and the knitting that's in it. In the green bowl is the alpaca and silk lace cowl that I had started working on last time. This, as I had said, was for my wife Janet. It's coming on rather well. The first two lace panels are done. There's a third one literally one row into being started, and it's coming on well. It doesn't look much there. It's not until it's actually stretched out to its finished dimensions that the pattern starts to become apparent. So I have blocked this, not blocked it, but temporarily pinned it to the table using some masking tape to get a better view of the finished pattern. And I'll stick some stills of that in to let you have a look. The actual feel of this as a finished fabric is absolutely gorgeous. It's really, really nice. As I said last time, it's 70% alpaca, 30% silk. It's drops lace, and I think if I get the chance, I will be picking up some more of this, because to get something that feels that nice is quite rare at times, and I think I would like to see that progress a little further. Hopefully we'll get it finished soon. Although in saying that, as I said last time, it's hard to keep going in that for any more than an hour or so at a time, just because it's so fine and it's on quite small needles. So what else have we got on the pins at the moment? It's all hidden around behind me, so forgive me while I search around. Oh, no, not on that side. Here we go. Double knitting. That was a 3-cornered cowl for a sci-fi themed knit along. This is, he says, looking through the middle. Coming on quite well. We've got about 3 inches done, and the pattern's starting to show. You'll notice that the next pattern panels positions are marked out, and they have quite literally just started. I would say that I have found out one thing about double knitting. At no point in time do you want to drop 20 or 30 stitches off the end of your needle, because getting them all picked up again in exactly the right order is interesting. Boy, was my crochet hook working overtime that day. But again, it's in cotton, and the cotton is really, really nice as it knits up. I've been really pleasantly surprised with the finished texture, so let's hope that we manage to get this done. This is due to be finished by the end of August for the knit along that it's the sci-fi knit along on the This Boy Knits group in Ravelry. Pardon me, my dinner's decided to repeat on me tonight. It's been really good fun. I wondered at the challenge of it. The bit that I had to experiment with at the beginning that made the most sense was just how do you hold your yarn? How are you going to work when you're working this technique? And I'd seen 2 or 3 demonstrations by different people, and the one I've ended up going with is 1 strand of yarn in each hand, so English knitting on one, continental on the other. And I have to say my continental knitting is coming on a pace because of that, so good tutorials in the background, and we'll talk about those later on, but that's coming on nicely. Now, last time I had this sock on the go, and I had said that I was working on number 2. Well, turned the heel on number 2 yesterday. Forgive me, I've just stuck the ball of yarn inside the sock so that I don't have it rolling away. So again, the first bit of the sock, plain vanilla underside, 6x1 rib on the front with single stitch cables every 4 rows just to create a bit of texture. Invisible cast on at the toe, as I said last time, and German short row heel. No reinforcing because my daughter says these are for wearing for sitting around the house, they're not for going inside shoes, so she's going to be perfectly happy to have them as slouchy socks for the house. And I'm hoping to maybe get those done, have them finished before you see them again. So they're coming on well. The yarn's 75 wool, 25 polyamide, and I've forgotten what it is. I'm sure it's drops again, but I'm blowed if I can remember which one. I'll have a look. If I can find a ball band, I'll pop it in later. Now, anything else works in progress? Well, funnily enough, no. We move on to what could be called completed objects. The first one, I was sitting just about a week ago, about 10 o'clock at night, and I had this idea pop into my head for a general shape for an asymmetric scarf or shawl. You can hear a cough in the background. It's my wife Janet. She's had this cough pestering and tickling at her throat for a while, so I'm hoping that she eventually manages to get rid of it because it's driving her nuts. Where was I? That's put me right off. Oh yes, sitting looking for ideas, and an idea popped into my head for a comma shaped or drop shaped asymmetric scarf or shawl. So grabbed a couple of balls of yarn, and no pattern, just decided to prototype on the needles. So one prototype garter stitch, a drop shawl or teardrop shaped shawl was born, and this is it. I liked the way the increases worked in, I liked the way the rows of holes came in, I liked the overall shape, and I thought, yeah, this is workable. But I didn't like the texture of the garter stitch. This particular set of yarn, it's an Arden weight yarn, it's King Cole. It had been in our stash at home for 3 or 4 years and had been used for all sorts of little bits of projects. There were 2 colours left, and this particular scarf, shawl, whatever you want to call it, used up 200 grams. And it's 70% acrylic, 30% wool. It's not unpleasant to the touch, but as a prototype, it served its purpose perfectly. It told me that the general shape, the general idea was viable. It showed me what I liked and what I didn't like about the shape. It showed me what I liked and didn't like about the texture. So off I went, rummaged through the stash and found that I had some other Arden. I had some Drops Big Delight sitting. The colour is 08 Dialot 347, and it went back onto the pins with a slight change. The general mass in the centre of that I felt was too heavy. It needed an element of something more lace-like built into it. That lace pattern had to lend itself to following the curve or following the shape. So, finished item. I was expecting it to be on the needles, but in the last evening or so it actually finished. And turn it around the right way. Here we go. One finished asymmetric logo. Now I don't know how much of this is actually going to fit on camera because it is big. It's as long as a full hand span. So since I'm a 5'10" man, hand span is 5'10". This is just an inch or two slightly larger. So I'm guessing it's about 60 inches long. So we'll see it in sections. You can see that the lace effect is a really simple stepped hole which follows in 10 row blocks. There's an asymmetric increase from a simple cast on at this end, and that extends all the way up to almost the end where I decided, okay, it's needing a finer edging, where it got this sort of bi-directional lace edge added and then scalloped, pointed, finished edge. And I love the colour. The colours look absolutely wonderful. The texture is nice. It's 100% wool. It's really, really cosy. I had it on to try it. I normally have quite a nasty reaction or unpleasant reaction to sort of jaggy, coarse wool. This isn't too coarse. It's not particularly jaggy. It's quite pleasant on my neck, on my arm. Would I wear it as a scarf myself? Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Is it a bit in the outlandish colour scheme for me? Yeah, but those people who know me know that I don't mind being outlandish. I go for loud hats. I go for a funny leather cowboy hat most of the time. So yeah, it's nothing too unusual there. A nice finished shawl. Who's going to end up with it? I haven't decided. Daughter had it on today. She was having a try at it. She said she liked it. She couldn't decide how she would wear it, whether she would wear it wound round, whether she would wear it sitting over the back of her shoulders with the narrow end thrown back round her neck. She couldn't decide if she would have it worn draped and thrown back. She just couldn't make up her mind. She loved the colour, she loved the texture, she liked the lacy effect. But I'll look for other opinions as well, and then I'll decide where it's going to end up. Now, whether this ends up as part of a giveaway is undecided. What I do know is that I sat and started the write-up for the pattern and the pattern for this will get finished over the next week or so, because while I'm still sitting doing next to nothing, I can quite happily, I think, tap away on my tablet and finish putting in the basic details of the pattern for this. It's not going to be that arduous, and then I'll try and get someone else to test knit it, and if they can get it to knit up as easily as I did, it'll go onto Ravelry and we'll see how it goes from there. So that's that one finished. I'll just pop it over here for the time being. What else do we have? There's one more finished item. Now this was actually finished a few weeks ago. Again, it's quite a large item, and over the last little while I've been watching people working on their Cozy Memories blanket. Mitered squares knitted together, and yes, I have started one because it looked like fun, and pardon me, too much garlic in the pasta tonight. It looked like a nice way of using up odds and ends of yarn. Now, prior to that, I did use up odds and ends of yarn using Tunisian crochet. As I mentioned last time, I do enjoy Tunisian crochet, and I had put my odds and ends into a blanket, and this is the blanket. It's quite a size. Here we go. I'll hide behind it while you have a look at it. In fact, let's just open it up. Again, it is quite a large blanket. It uses up, oh, there's all sorts of fibre mixes in here. There's some wool, there's some acrylic, there's some viscose. There's no cotton at the moment. There's a little bit of the brown that was in the teardrop prototype. So there's some Aran weight yarn, there's some double knitting, I think there's even some 4-ply, and it just means that some squares are slightly more open than others. Now, my intention for this was that this would happily sit over my knees of a winter's evening if it was getting cold, just to help keep the draft off. Grandson Ian, who you saw earlier, came in, looked at it and shouted, "Granda, you've made a Minecraft blankie." Thank you, I love it. And it was gone. It's been snaffled. He's claimed it as his Minecraft blankie. When he comes for sleepover, it goes to bed with him. Last weekend we went into the back garden to have a picnic with his younger cousins, and of course the Minecraft blankie had to go on the ground to become a picnic blanket. So it's proved quite popular, and if it's going to get use like that, I'm going to be perfectly happy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a scrap blanket like that being hauled around by kids and used for fun. And that's the finished objects at the moment. There's nothing else. If you'd like to pass information on them, feel free. The prototype for the drop blanket, I think I'll give it a wash. It hasn't had any blocking attempted with it yet. It's literally as it came off the needles. But because of its wool content, I think it will block and stretch just a little. So I think we'll do that with it. The other one, the Drops Delight one with the lace work in it, has had a light steam blocking, just to see how it would drape, and it does, it drapes quite well, so I'm happy with that. I'm inclined to say that the first prototype will go into a giveaway. This first week has been quite phenomenal. And there are already 135 subscribers to this podcast, which has blown me away. It's absolutely amazing. So, if those 135 people would like to get onto Ravelry, join the Ravelry group, I later tonight will put up teardrop prototype giveaway thread. Get in there, say you would like it. If you're the lucky winner on a random number draw at the end of the month, it'll be yours. The only thing I would say is I will say that you can have it, but you're responsible for the postage to get it to you. So once we know where you are, we'll figure out what the postage is going to be. I don't think it'll be earth-shatteringly dreadful. And we'll come to some arrangement and get that to you. So there we go, a first giveaway. I hadn't even thought of that. Normally people are getting yarn, but to actually give them a finished item is a little bit unusual. Give it a try, see what people think. Okay, votes of thanks. I said I was going to put in some votes of thanks, and here we go. There are some people who in the podcasting community have been, over the last couple of weeks, an absolutely wonderful source of advice, information and encouragement. And there are three in particular who stand out just because of the style of podcasting and their encouragement either on Ravelry or in messaging or via their podcasts, and I want to say thank you to them. The first one is David in Dundee, This Boy Knits. He's a knitter, a dyer, a sewer and a podcaster, and I've enjoyed watching him for a while now. His forum on Ravelry is quite active and it's quite interesting, and he's the one responsible for the sci-fi cal that I've got involved in. The lace droplet shawl, when I finished it, I suddenly realised looked like a dinosaur, so I've stuck it on there as a finished object inspired by Jurassic Park. Just because that's a dinosaur looked at. I will see, that might be fun. So thanks to David and Dundee. Eva Christie from the Eva Christie Knits podcasts. Eva has sent words of encouragement and given an absolutely lovely welcome to the podcasting community in the podcast before last that she posted. Thank you, Eva, for that. It made me feel really, really welcome, and it has encouraged me to keep going. So I hope you enjoy number 2 and you have a lot to answer for. You've created another monster. I have to say, one of my friends watched your podcast, and the way you described me, she said, yes, that's you. I won't say how she described me. Anyone who wants to go and watch Eva's podcast and hear her description of me is more than welcome. Heaven help you. And the last one is Nathan Taylor, Sockmatician. I've been watching Nathan's podcasts for a while. As a male knitter who has a challenge in life to try and improve the lot of male knitters in terms of the number of patterns available and the number of patterns available to people who knit for men, I think is an absolutely wonderful thing. I have to agree with him. Over the years I've found it quite challenging to find patterns at times. As you can see, I am not a small man, and finding a pattern which on average goes up to a chest size above 44 to 46 inches is almost impossible at times. Luckily for me, when I learned to knit, my grandmother taught me almost instantly to look at a pattern and to be able to throw in an extra pattern panel or make minor adjustments to get the size to be what I wanted it to be. Sometimes in terms of tension, sometimes in terms of modification to make it work. So I've never had a problem. I've always been able to find a pattern that I liked and adjust it to suit my needs. Mainly because she taught me the basic principles of lots of different styles of knitting. How many different types of sleeve insert are there? What are they used for? Why are they common? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Why would you choose one over another? She would have a conversation like that with me, and it always made perfect sense. And because of that, whether I've got something which is a knitted yoke, whether it's a drops shoulder, whether it's a fitted sleeve or a set-in sleeve, a raglan sleeve, has made no difference. Whether something is knitted in the round, whether it's knitted in flat panels and then sewn up, again makes no difference. So for me as a male knitter, I can cope with things like that. There's a lot of people out there who don't have that type of skill, or maybe haven't learned to knit in the same way. So Nathan, thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for the absolutely wonderful shout out on your last podcast. It was almost as if you were presenting the John Glenn half hour at one point, because I seemed to appear in 3 different segments of what you were talking about, and I have to say my head swelled a little with it, so thanks very much. The man has given up his time to read my email. He's given up his time to watch my podcast and to provide really constructive feedback. He answers questions and is completely open. What you see is what you get. He seems to be a very, very straightforward, kind and generous person, and all I can say is, Nathan, you are a true gentleman. Thank you. So, moving on. What's next? Well, people talk about stash and stash enhancement and what they've put into their stores. When I went to find the old balls of yarn that I wanted for that prototype, I came across something I had completely forgotten. Now, where have I put it? And it was this. This is a lovely piece of superwash merino hand spun yarn. Produced by Gong Crafts. It's botanically hand dyed yarn from the Highlands of Scotland. And the couple who do the spinning and the dyeing at Gong Crafts, I met at the Caithness County show just over a year ago, and I bought this yarn and I put it into safe storage thinking I'll use that in the autumn. Well, the autumn came and went. I forgot it was there, found it the other day, and it hasn't gone into ball form yet, but it will in the near future, because I'm thinking if it's this soft, it might just make a really nice cosy cardigan for the youngest of the 3 grandsons, Leo, who joined us just about a month ago, just under a month ago. And I'm not saying just over a month ago, and I think it would be really nice for him. There's 100 grams there, which I think will do everything I need. I was with my good lady wife on Sunday. She said that because I had obeyed doctor's orders and behaved, she would take me out for a run in the car, brighten up my weekend. So she took me all the way to Inverness, which is 120 miles south. We went to the cinema and saw the new Star Trek movie that's been released. We're both Star Trek fanatics, so that seemed a very logical thing to do. Janet knits as well, so when we had finished that, we went for a really nice lunch, and then she said, do you think you could manage the time for us to stop at a yarn shop? Well, it's a silly question, really. So I said yes, and you'll notice that we're getting towards twilight. The light outside is failing slightly, so I hope there's enough light for you to see what's happening. So what did I get? Well, I got through the shop halfway and my breathing gave out slightly and I had to sit down and have a rest. The problem I've had over the last couple of weeks is lung and breathing related, and I'd never realised just how debilitating things like that can be. So, 3 balls for the price of 2, and reduced to clear, 2 sail bits in one. This is 100% superwash merino. It's incredibly soft, a really fine twist. It's DMC's woolly natural knitting, merino wool, and these 3 colours, a black, a rust and an olive green, I thought went really, really well together. So there are 3 balls of each, and they are going to become a piece of something stranded. Now, what that's going to be yet, I don't know. It may be a hat and scarf set. It may be hat, scarf and gloves. I've still to make up my mind. I don't think it'll be another piece of double knitting. I think this will be simple stranded knitting. Oh, I do apologise. So we'll wait and see. But absolutely gorgeous feel. Really soft and smells lovely. It's terrible, isn't it? You pick yarn up and the first thing you do is you feel it, you put it to your cheek or your face, and the next thing you know, your nose is in the middle of it and you have to have a sniff. What does it smell like? Absolutely crazy, but hey, that happens. So there was that. Then I spotted this, again reduced to clear. It's, where are we? 75% cotton, 25% viscose, 50 gram balls. Those are, are they 50s or 100s? Those are 50 grams as well. The grey appealed to me, with a little fleck of teal and the little flecks of pink. I didn't think it was too horrendous. Again, there are 3 balls of this one. Why pick up some extra cotton? Well, Charlotte at Charlotte Knits has said she's exploring non-wool based fibres because of some life changes she's made. Charlotte, I said I would be supportive and I would do the same thing. So when I saw this, I thought of you, and I thought, okay, there has to be a project somewhere that's going to use this. Now, whether I combine it with some of the other cotton that I have in my stash, I do have some cream in my stash, or not cream, but a natural unbleached cotton double knitting from Drops, and it may be that the two go together to produce something. So we'll wait and see. Again, really good value for money at the moment. This lot came from Hobbycraft of all places, and I was pleasantly surprised to find this lot reduced to clear in amongst the shelf upon shelf upon shelf of acrylic based yarns that they have. I do always have some acrylic in the house, and there's things for which acrylic is completely appropriate, but there are some things which it just doesn't work for, and there are some things that you want a break from it. If you have had to knit acrylic, when I'm knitting for the grandkids, because you want things that are easily thrown in the washing machine a lot of the time, and because they're growing so fast and things have a short life expectancy, knitting in acrylic is economically viable. So it's nice to have something like this for a change. And last but not least, as we were getting ready to leave, as I got my breath back, I spotted this stuff from Rico Designs. It's called Creative Reflection. It's 46% wool, 46% acrylic and 8% polyester. The 8% polyester is the sort of Stellina styled sparkle that appears to be through it, and this brown and green struck me as an absolutely nice gold, brown, green muted something. We've taken 2 balls of that. My wife saw it and she said, could that maybe be a hat? And I thought, yeah, that could be a hat. Quite easily that could be a hat, and it could be really, really nice. So there's 100 grams of that. Now I have a grandniece, Casey, in Glasgow, and beside that was this pink, purple and green, and I saw it and I thought, you know, a slightly smaller hat for Casey would not be a bad idea as well. It's slightly brushed, it's got a lovely sort of slightly ethereal feel to it, this stuff, and I'm hoping that when it's knitted up, that sort of brushed effect stays fluffy and creates for a really nice finished fabric. So there we go. Did I need it? No. Are there still bags upon bags of yarn sitting in the house? Yes. But it cheered us up, and we both enjoyed that walk into the shop, getting 40 yards into the shop and having to give up because I got breathless. Having a rest, Janet running back forward, bringing me pieces of wool to feel and look at and check dye lots on. And then I went straight to the car, she went to the checkout. So yeah, no, that bit was fun. So that's the stash enhancement. Give me a second, I'm going to move this lot out of the way, clear the table in front of me because I want the space. There is a section that I promised called needles and pins, and I said I would look at what we have as knit, needle and crochet supplies. Well, needles and pins I do have, and my needles and pins are stored in what I call my big white box. Now my big white box is sitting beside me, and this is it. It's a big white storage box. It's an art storage box, repurposed to do what I need, and all my straights are in there. If I spin it round, my DPNs are in there, and this collection of needles means a lot to me because some of them were mine, some of them were my mother's, and most of them were my grandmother's. So in here are the needles that I learned to knit with. In here are the Imperial size 9 needles that I used for my first piece of Aran work. My tooth marks are still in the plastic ends of the needles. When I go through them, needles marked with imperial sizes as opposed to metric sizes predominate. Needles whose ends are so badly chewed that they're falling apart fill quite a lot of space. There are some crochet hooks, cheap but cheerful long length Tunisian crochet hooks for blanket use are in here. My cheap but cheerful bamboo circulars are in here. What else is in here? There's all sorts. Stitch holders. There's a blue plastic stitch holder. Hang on, I'll just recover it for a second. Now, this stitch holder I remember as a kid. That stitch holder I remember when I first learned to knit being a giveaway in the Women's Weekly magazine. My grandmother was a great reader of the My Weekly and the Women's Weekly because she liked the crosswords. And this was a giveaway in the Women's Weekly. I remember her taking it out of its little paper packet and saying, oh, I'll just put it in the box. And she put it in the pin box. Now that was 45 years ago and that plastic stitch holder is still there. There are one or two other giveaway type things in here, which I think are quite funny. In this side is again a Women's Weekly giveaway inch tape, and with the giveaway inch tape there is a blue plastic cable needle. Now, what's actually just fallen out of there is the smallest and finest, I'll just hold it up against this as a background, crochet hook that I have ever seen. Now, my grandmother was a great one for crocheting table centres, antimacassars, doilies, covers for the arms of sofas to make sure that you didn't leave a greasy mark with your hand on the end of her settee. Now this is less than 1 millimetre across at the tip. It's something like a 0.5 millimetre needle. It's an imperial size 6 and the manufacturer is Venus. Now I don't know how old it is. And funnily enough, I was looking at mercerised cotton in the yarn shop the other day thinking, will I buy some single strand cotton just to give it a try? Now there are 1 or 2 spots of rust appearing on this. I'm guessing that this could quite possibly be as old as I am, but there is no way on earth I'm planning to part with it, so it's going back into its Women's Weekly holder and it's going back into the big white box. And beside it in the big white box are some other idiosyncrasies. My grandmother's Tunisian crochet hook. Now, I don't know how long she had it for, I don't know where she got it, I just know she had it in her box and it had been there for a long, long time. Now, whether it was hers or whether it belonged to an aunt, my Aunt Betty, who may possibly have left it there when she moved away years ago, I don't know, but it's there. I've used it a couple of times and it is good fun. And there are these. Now these are hand-turned wooden containers, and the hand-turned wooden containers hold stainless steel or chromed steel sock pins, imperial size 12 and size 14 sock pins, so that's going down to sort of 2 millimetres up to about 2.5 millimetres, and wrong one. I'm guessing from the way these are stored that these potentially could be my grandmother's, or could they possibly have been my grandfather's, because my grandfather was a sailor and he was in the Royal Navy in the, well, from when he was a teenager. So we're going back to the 1920s, and there are photographs of him serving in the late 1920s, early 1930s in the Royal Navy. So I knew he was capable of things like this. Whether or not he actually did, I'm unsure. I hope he did. I hope that they've got a provenance or a background that goes that far back. If they were just a nice set of cases that my granny found for her stuff a long time ago, I'm delighted. I'm not parting with them. The needles in there are DPMs and are starting to show some signs of rust, unfortunately. But we will hang on to them. There's no way I'm going to part with those. And the last bit I have in here is a blast from the family pack as well. And it's this. Oh, better remember to put that away, or it'll end up falling between the cracks. Now this belonged to my grandfather. This was his role, part of his naval kit, and it contains his palm, sail-making needles. So you can imagine, just this is a piece of family history that goes back a long time. It's incredibly well worn. I'm delighted to have it, but there's also a darning needle in here, and in the centre section there's a selection of wool for darning socks, and in the bottom section is the dolly that he would have used for stretching the sock for darning. Now that, to me, is special. How many men nowadays, how many women nowadays would still know how to darn a sock? And how many people would still bother to darn a sock? If it was a hand knitted sock, yes, I would still darn it and extend its life because it's well worth it. If it's a commercially produced sock, a commercially produced kilt sock, yes, I might darn it if it's going to be hidden inside a shoe. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's perfectly worthwhile. But this is a little piece of family history which I find quite special, and which I am delighted to be the custodian of for this particular part of, for time at the moment. At some point in time, I will hopefully pass this on to someone else who might value it as much as I do, because it is, I don't know, I'm just an old sentimentalist at heart, and I love things like that. So, that's my big white box. What can I say? The big white box gets its name because of the part of the huntsman in a panto version of Snow White that I played a few years ago. I played the huntsman, and the huntsman had a big red box, and in the big red box was a big red axe. So, many thanks to the author of that particular panto. Well, the light is fading outside. It's just getting to what you would normally consider quiet, sort of twilightish. I think it's about 10 PM. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting chatting to you. What can I say? Instagram, Ravelry, email, and YouTube. Find me, talk to me, give me comments. Have I gone through things too fast? Have I spent too little time showing you the things I've been working on, showing you the finished objects? I do have some stills of some of it, and I'll include those so that you get a chance to look and see for a little bit longer what they look like. And really, that's it for this week. Thanks to all those who are here for the first time. Thanks to those of you who are here for the second time. I look forward to putting together podcast number 3. I haven't the faintest idea what's going to go in it yet. I have the faintest idea what I'll be working on between now and then. But it has been fun, and I hope you enjoy the little insert from my guest presenter. Whether or not he'll be back for future episodes, I don't know. I do know that, speaking to another local crafter, I said that if I continue with these podcasts, I would be looking to speak to some of the local Caithness crafting community and maybe have them join me to tell me why they're interested in knitting, crochet, sewing, whatever they're into, and why they enjoy working on it. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you all very much for watching. And as a request from someone who's watched the first episode came in, can you please finish in the following manner? Cheerio, keep on knitting.